Hello, everyone. This is your host, Akil Jabbar, and welcome back to another episode of SaaS District by Horizon Capital, where we partner with B2B SaaS companies and help them scale with both capital and our growth marketing playbook. This episode is also sponsored by our partners at Byldd, a startup development studio that helps early-stage startups build and launch scalable revenue-generating software businesses. Product development is often a challenge for non-technical founders who don't have a tech person internally. That's where Byldd comes in. They help founders build and launch their MVPs, test the market, and find product market fit. For $15K and roughly a month's work, Byldd will get your validated product up and out. We've all been burnt by the companies that promised this for years, but Byldd is focused on finding product market fit and will do that by keeping you away from the feature creep and escalating costs that do most initial products. They keep costs low with the block structure, but more importantly, they have already built great products on scope and on time for founders. Companies they've worked with have generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, gotten into Y Combinator, or raised money at 8-figure valuations. If you have an idea and want to see it come to life as a product, head over to byldd.com. That's BYLDD.com today. In today's episode, we'll be talking about managing legal risks for digital documents and contracts. Today, we have our guest, Charles Brecque, joining us. Charles is the founder and CEO of Legislate. They're an early-stage legal tech startup which allows large landlords, letting agents, and small businesses to easily create, sign, and manage contracts that are prudent and fair. Their platform is built on its patented knowledge graph, which streamlines the contracting process and aggregates contract stats to quickly unlock valuable insights. Interesting stat, Charles was also one of the first employees of Mind Foundry, which is an Oxford University spin-out, which specializes in automated data science and AI. So super impressive, Charles. I'm super excited to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Let's talk about your product, your market, just to give a little bit of background for the people listening in. Who are you guys really helping? I mentioned a few people. Type of markets you're targeting. Who are you guys helping when it comes to those types of agreements, which you guys help to settle and create and let people, sign through your platform?
Yeah. So, ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to make contracts machine readable so that you don't need a lawyer in the loop because, most agreements, I call them lawyer readable, meaning, requires legal expertise to understand how the contract structured, whether it's a good contract. And that's great if you're a lawyer, but the majority of us are not lawyers. The majority of businesses don't have legal teams. So really what we're trying to do is we're making contracts machine readable so that technology can automate the creation of those contracts. And then second of all, make the data in those contracts searchable post-signature, because that tends to be, one of the biggest bottlenecks post-signature is, matching invoices to payment terms, which are described in contracts, or, setting up services which are described in the contracts. It's a real manual and painful process. And we streamline the end-to-end, not just, the template, not just the signature, but really the end-to-end, because, contracts are holistic and, have a journey, and that's really what we're trying to automate. So to answer your question about, who are we helping? We're helping, as you said, landlords, letting agents to do their property agreements. We work quite a lot with small businesses and startups to help with their employment contracts, maybe some basic sales contracts, some consultancy agreements. There really are no limits to what type of contracts we can work with, but we've started with agreements which where there's a lot of demand, and contracts which typically might require a lawyer initially to set things up, but going forward it's very hands off, and that way we're working with non-lawyers. They create contracts, but they're not lawyers, and that way we're also not competing too much with lawyers because as an early stage startup, it's really important to build that first market and niche.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I guess when things get a little more complicated and there's a lot more involved, and you can afford the lawyer at that point, then it makes sense. But, you also don't want to go with the copy and paste contract that you don't fully understand. So this is kind of a middle ground. So, okay, I'm not ready for a lawyer. I don't want something free, but this is a good option that, probably checks off 90 or 95% of the boxes. Now, which is different, which you guys have when you compare versus like a DocuSign or any of these platforms which help you sign documents or contracts which you upload. You guys actually have all these templates built, right? And you try to give that kind of support and say, I mean, that's kind of your huge feature, which is like not only giving the platform, we're giving you templates. So we're almost like a whole lawyer in one. I mean, who's creating these? Do you have a lawyer on the team who's just constantly creating all these documents and taking, is that part of your product feedback loop, which you're asking users, okay, what else can we create? And then you just say, all right, here, lawyer, let's person on our team. Can you please create this for us? How does that work?
Exactly. So we have a legal team and we've got a chief legal officer who kind of manages the whole process. We source our templates from the same legal libraries that law firms will source theirs from, except what we do is we will simplify the language so that non-lawyers can actually understand the contents of the agreements. And we also then work with our clients to work out, what are the clauses which are relevant to their business? Because if you go to a law firm or a legal library, they'll throw everything that they can possibly think of, which in 99% of cases isn't actually market standard or relevant, which is also why when you work with lawyers, you do tend to end up with more negotiation because, you start off with terms which are very biased or, in one side's favor, when really if you start with market standard, then there is no negotiation at the end of the day around, the legal language. So our legal team works with our clients to kind of work out what is market standard, what should be included, and then we simplify the language. And then afterwards, it goes through a tech process of dissecting the contracts into parameters, which are then fed into the knowledge graph. And then in that knowledge graph, we apply rules to control the input parameters so that you don't actually end up creating a contract which doesn't make sense or isn't enforceable. So we'll never really allow you to input, garbage, and we'll never allow you to input, terms which are unreasonable, not legal or unenforceable. So that's kind of, how the platform works and how our legal team works. But just because you mentioned, DocuSign and other e-signing platforms at the beginning, they optimize for speed of signature.
Right.
And with Legislate, you can sign quickly because it's a digital process. But really what we're trying to optimize is the ability of our, customers and people signing contracts to understand what they're signing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. You've actually taken, principles from the lawyer, way of thinking and approaching it and used, take some of those controls and implement it using technology to help enforce it and set the, manage the risk around, being a free for all, but also using, some legal, some terminology or way of practices into the actual tech. So that's cool. Did you guys start with, building the library and, becoming like a template company, or did you guys start with a signature platform and then, or did you have both at the same time? Like where did that journey kind of start?
So the signature at Legislate is really just the cherry on the top because we believe in the end-to-end process. So it isn't actually possible to use Legislate without using our templates. We can only work with a client's templates if they, feed them to us, and then we will, convert them and add them. But ultimately, for 99% of our customers, they will come to us with no templates. They'll use our templates. And even if they think they have templates, what they often find is that our templates are better because they're more up to date, they're maintained. Maybe they bought their templates from a law firm, but it was 2 years ago. And in 2 years, a lot can happen. So it's just, easier and more efficient to work with our templates. And that's why we kind of, we got started with both.
Makes sense. And then when it comes to, the biggest thing, if I'm thinking I'm a business and I say, okay, I might want to try out Legislate. I might use that for I'm looking to hire, my team and build out some new documentation around that. One option is go out to a lawyer and, maybe in my mind, I've de-risked myself, right? Because the lawyer knows what he's doing. I'm just going to pay him for that problem. And then the other side is like, okay, but I also have this option of using Legislate, but there's the risk around that. Can you talk about what are some of the legal risks of, if I decide to sign through you guys that maybe I can prevent versus just going the legal route of using a lawyer?
Yeah. So, I think lawyers are great, and we're not actually trying to replace lawyers. If you think about lawyers and what they enjoy doing and what they're good at, they really are good at advising on which contract should you use for your specific situation, or what might be the consequences of entering into this type of deal. That's what they enjoy doing, what they're good at. When it comes to actually drafting contracts, reviewing contracts, that's not typically something a lawyer will do. They will hand it off to their paralegal. Their paralegal will do all the work. And then if a lawyer gets dragged into that process, it's never really a top priority, for them, because, lawyers are time poor. So really, when it comes to using Legislate, what you're doing is you're setting your business up for the future. So yes, you could, source a template from a lawyer, a one-off template, which is effectively an unstructured document that you'll need to maintain yourself, whenever there's a legal update, which, editing templates is risky anyway. With Legislate, you don't need to worry about templates anymore. That's the first thing, because, we keep track of the legal updates ourselves. We update everything accordingly so that you don't actually, need to worry about having a contract which has clauses which are irrelevant or out of date or illegal because a new law has passed. So that's, the first thing. And, that's what you're unlocking with Legislate. But the second thing is the data in your contracts. And if you have all your contracts in unstructured form, whether that's a PDF or even paper format, you can't just say, okay, I know that I've got 10 employees that are on a 30-day notice period. You can't honestly manually track that data separately. So with Legislate, you have the ability to query that data at any point in time. And especially as you start to hire more employees and grow as a business, you then have all that data in one place, which is great for the business decisions, but it's also great for automating your compliance. So you can easily and automatically report on gender pay gap reporting. You can automatically, if you're going through due diligence, say, yep, here's the due diligence spreadsheet of what contracts we have and what terms they contain. So you're saving a lot of time. You're automating compliance. And in terms of risks that happen with contracts, I'd say the biggest risk is simply to not use a contract, or use a contract which wasn't tailored for you, because every business is unique. And not using a contract or using the wrong contract puts yourself at risk, or gives you a false sense of protection when in reality maybe you haven't sufficiently protected your intellectual property. There's all sorts of specific risks, and that we don't necessarily need to go into the detail, but really it's good to have the right contracts and to be able to track the data in those contracts automatically.
Right. I think we were talking about before the show, right? Like you said, this is kind of just a perceived risk, but a lot of time we call these agreements and contracts, and that's the point. But they're more, the only time you look at them is when you're in a disagreement. And I think the idea is what you're saying is like, okay, we probably have most of this covered. At least the points are there, and our legal team has vetted this. We've talked in the industry. We understand what are the risks that could happen. We have these in place, these measures. And if we do get to the point of disagreement, we've included this part, so you didn't miss it, right? And I think that's the missing. Well, we feel the burden is like, okay, I gave it to a lawyer, and if he missed it, now I can put the blame on him, right? But in this case, you're taking care of that ahead of time, which I love. So we talked a little about features, which is, I love the idea that you can actually scan the document, because, when you come to legal term and there's a 100-page document, there's nothing worse than having to read it, to review it. So that's awesome. Is there any other, other functionalities like, AI? I know you come with that kind of background, working in that space, being used in the contract creation process, or tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the knowledge graph, which we've patented and kind of maps out the data in the contracts, that is a branch of AI that does the opposite of what machine learning does. So it's called semantic reasoning, and it applies logic to find patterns in data and infer new relationships, as opposed to machine learning, which is trying to induce patterns from the data. So the reason why we took the semantic approach is because when it comes to contracts, it needs to be 100% certain. You can't afford to be 99% certain, which is ultimately with machine learning, it'll always be at best 99.999%. But with a contract, it needs to be 100%. There's no compromise on that front. So that's why we took that approach. And And knowledge graphs are great at modeling relationships. It's how Google organizes the web and makes the web searchable. So it's great at kind of deducing in a very efficient way, what is the answer based on, all this information and also logic, relationships, entities. So we're applying that to contracts. And so that you can answer questions like, how many of my software developers that have been with me for over a year are still on a 30-day notice period, or, because maybe actually they become senior and now we need to put them on a senior employment contract with a longer notice period, more restrictions. So, or how many, employees report to this line manager because, something's just happened with them and we need to work out the damage. So, you can't really answer those questions efficiently and in real time without a knowledge graph. So that's kind of how we're using AI today. But where I want us to use AI in the future is as we start to aggregate data from our users and obviously anonymize the data, we can also then help, customers who are creating contracts for the first time understand what is standard, for their industry, or for this job title.
Right.
What is a standard restriction period? Because a lot of non-lawyers, they've created contracts maybe once or twice, but they don't know what they should actually be putting in their contracts. Same for an NDA. What is a reasonable term for my industry? And that's why we want to use machine learning to be able to help customers kind of understand how to fill their contracts. And then maybe a step further, help them optimize their parameters based on how quickly they want contracts to be signed.
And is the market that you're targeting, does your contracts, are they more applicable to the UK market, or is this kind of, applicable across? Because I imagine, regulations are different in every country, or?
Yeah, so the technology can be applied anywhere. Really what we have is a legal bottleneck that we need to solve. So right now our focus is, the UK, but over the next 12 months, we'll be expanding into other jurisdictions, including the US.
A quick note from our sponsors today, and we'll be right back. This episode is sponsored by dofollow.io, a premium link building agency specializing in driving SEO growth for SaaS companies. Do you have great content and want to boost your organic traffic to your website? Get links on high-quality websites such as MSN, HubSpot, Zendesk, Cloudways, and hundreds of others. dofollow.io can get you guaranteed results for less than the cost of hiring an in-house SEO, completely hands-off, no retainer, 100% performance-based, and cancel anytime. If you're interested, book a call now at dofollow.io and start outranking your competitors today. So one part which I'm interested in, and this may be different now. I never encountered this case, during or after COVID, which is the difference between e-signatures being allowed and versus wet signatures, especially when it comes to, like banks, government documentation, banking documentation. There's a lot of documents, even real estate, where I remember I tried to send them an e-signature. This was 3 or 4 years ago, and they're just like, no, we won't accept it. I'm like, oh, we can. I said, well, let's use DocuSign or this, this one of these things in the past, and they were just like, no, it has to be physically signed. Or so, from your perspective, and I don't know if that was just a thing in Canada. I know you work more in the UK market. Are e-signatures, legally binding as wet signatures? And then, what are the scenarios where you think that it is important? It has to be in person, and I can't think of it.
So, in the UK, e-signatures are recognized. There are a number of, criteria around, what makes a e-signature perfectly valid. But, I do think that the pandemic has helped, change mindsets around signatures. I know that in the UK, nearly all documents can be e-signed. There are certain ones that, especially around the sale of a property, that still require wet signatures, but that is actually, there is motions in place to actually change that. So I do think, maybe in 10 years time, everything will be electronically signed and that will be the situation. But I think if you think about, wet signatures, they've created certain concepts. Like, I don't know if it's the same in Canada, but in the UK, certain signatures need to be witnessed, meaning, a witness needs to sign saying, yep, my name is Charles and I live here and I've witnessed John sign this contract. And this is their signature. the whole concept of witnessing, makes sense when in a real world setting where you're signing physically. But if you're signing electronically, then the server is witnessing you sign. So it's automatically witnessing, and it's much more reliable than, some random person in a room, saying, yes, they signed, because, at the end of the day, you're just taking that person's word. So I think, there's a lot of benefits of going to electronic signatures aside from just the speed. And I think that is where the world is heading.
Yeah, I've seen some cool functionalities of like security features where they'll send you a text message to verify your account or your name. And for me, it's very, the chances that somebody else has your phone and signing for you, or going to your email and actually opening it up and then signing for you is a lot lower, right? So the fact that they have to send you an email and then you have to sign it, it's probably more realistic than if somebody was actually beside you signing it, right, as a witness.
And then you have the audit trail as well of, even if someone did hack your phone and sign on your behalf, then you'd have the digital audit trail of everything to prove that that's what happened.
That's true. Exact time, exact moment where, sometimes IP address where it was signed. And I was like, okay, I wasn't even there. You can say I was in this location or whatever, right? Yeah. Okay. And then I want to talk about kind of opportunity in this space, right? I'm not too familiar with legal tech. I think there's, I imagine there's a lot of opportunity there. If I'm maybe a new SaaS founder or somebody looking to get into this space of legal tech, how do you feel we're being served right now in terms of what's available in terms of the vendors in the market, or what kind of other SaaS companies? And, if you were to see an area of opportunity, what would you see as like, okay, this is an area that's, that somebody should look at tackling?
Yeah. So I think, legal tech is definitely, a market that has been slower or, a lot smaller than, let's say fintech. Some people are now saying that legal tech is where fintech was 5 years ago. So it's still very early days, both in terms of the companies, but also in terms of adoption. And the reason, I think, is because most, legal tech founders are, ex-lawyers, and most legal tech companies are trying to optimize lawyers or optimize the tools that lawyers work with, which again is great if you're a lawyer, but not so good if you're not a lawyer. So I think where there's a lot of opportunity is around democratizing, whether it's legal tools or legal services for non-lawyers directly. And that's what the approach we've taken for contracts. We're a tool. Obviously, lawyers do use us because they think it's great for preparing their contracts and delegating the platform to the rest of the team. But, we've built the product so that it's easy enough for a non-lawyer. And I think the biggest opportunity in legal tech is catering for that market directly, as opposed to catering for that market indirectly by, helping the lawyers that might already be catering that market.
Makes sense. And then is there anything, maybe if you're seeing what's available in the space, and there's already some legal tech companies that are, implementing this, is there anything that you see that they should be doing differently, or in terms of the process or in terms of technology? With your background in AI, I imagine there's a lot of things that come up.
To be honest, there really aren't that many companies building solutions for non-lawyers directly, which is why I think it is hard for me to comment, because I feel like a lot of the legal tech companies are catering for legal teams or lawyers, and they're doing a great job at that. And, I think there's room for both, because at the end of the day, lawyers aren't going to disappear. They need their own tools. And really what we're just doing is allowing more users to benefit from the same type of tools.
Nice. I love it. So using the legal route, the technology, but more not for lawyers, for a different market, which is great. Cool. Well, this has been great, Charles. I really appreciate kind of you sharing your knowledge and background. So I'd like to kind of shift gears and move towards the personal, more rapid fire questions. So, obviously there's just, you take your time in terms of answering it, but they'll just be quick kind of questions. So you ready to go there, bro?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I want to start off. Tell me a little bit more about Legislate. Where are you guys in terms of size today? And have you guys raised outside capital, or if so, how much have you raised and where?
So we're a team of 12 and we've raised £1.15 million.
Okay, cool. What's one activity you enjoy outside of work? So this can be, you're working or doing a podcast that you say gets you into flow state and you enjoy doing.
I'm lazy. So, I mean, on the physical activity side, but
Sure.
when I get my mind to it and I go jogging in the morning before work, that does tend to get me into the flow state.
Okay, nice. What's one piece of advice you wish you had known? If you can go back and you would tell your, let's say 25-year-old self, you look like pretty young, but let's use that.
So I actually started Legislate when I was 25.
Okay.
I think, maybe I would have said, don't start a company just yet, simply because, there are benefits to having more experience, having more of a network, having more of a track record for, it should in theory make life easier. But on the other hand, maybe, things wouldn't have happened, the same way. Maybe Legislate wouldn't exist. So I think, I think really the only piece of advice to my 25-year-old self is, not everything will go to plan. And, when things seem like the end of the world, it rarely is. And you just need to move on.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, that advice applies for, I think, every stage of your life or a different scenario. So that's awesome. Charles, what are some of the, let's talk about end of the world, but, there's also challenges on day-to-day basis right now. What are some of the biggest challenges you're currently facing in order to continue to grow Legislate? Meaning, what's keeping you up at night these days?
So I think for us, it's probably the same for most software businesses. It's how do you get more customers? We've just recently crossed the milestone of 100 paying customers, but we always need to grow. We always need to maintain growth levels which appeal to current and future investors, and I think that's something which keeps me up at night.
Nice. Who or what are the best 3 resources? These can be books, they can be people, mentors, or maybe just people you follow in the space who you'd say have been the most instrumental to your success over these last few years as you're building your company?
I think my favorite book is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, that probably everyone has read by now. But what I liked about the book is it was very practical. So you could test, almost everything that he talks about, all those technique strategies, and you can quickly see results. Mm-hmm. And I feel it's definitely helped me in my career, both before and now at Legislate. So, because life is a negotiation, and ultimately with customers, you need to, win them over somehow.
Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Great book. Any other books or people you follow in the space?
Well, another, great book that was actually referenced by Chris Voss is How to Become a Rainmaker. And it's a very, short 100-page book, which is just a bunch of rules, but again, very practical and quite useful.
How to be a rainmaker. Is that the name of it?
Cool. I think so, yeah. If you search on Amazon, you'll find it.
Okay, cool. We'll add those links to the show notes, people to check out and download or order in paper. Charles, what does success mean to you today? Whether that's personally, business, financial, life, I guess there's no right answer. I think that changes over time.
Yes. I mean, we're a team of 12 and we obviously are a startup, so not yet profitable. And we need to do more fundraising. We need to grow the business. We need to get more customers. And, for me, success will be when I don't really need to worry about, paying everyone's salaries, or needing to worry about there not being a business, because we're on a good trajectory. There's, a clear path towards profitability, or even maybe we're already profitable. It's not that I'm, not confident that we'll get there, but I think, for me, that's what successful will be like, and when I'll be able to just, relax a bit more.
Yeah, the real struggle, right? People listening in, I mean, that's a real thing when you go down the VC route, when you're trying to raise and, build a startup. It's it's not easy. You know, it's a responsibility taking on a few $1 million in your bank account. And you got to put it to work and keep keep your company afloat, right? It's not just fun and games. Yeah.
And ironically, you know, you've got to, you know, put the money to work, literally, to the point of maybe not having any money left, because that's ultimately what will lead to the growth. So it's you know, quite a bit of a gamble, but quite exciting.
Chicken and egg, but if you hit it properly, I mean, everybody's happy, right? And just got to be careful, keep an eye on it, and when you have to go or you have to make changes or go out and raise, you have to do it, and you have no choice.
Yeah.
Cool. This is awesome, Charles. You know, people listening in, founders or marketers or consultants, anyone in the SaaS space wants to get in touch with you, learn more about you and your company, where's the best place to go?
Yeah. So our website is legislate.tech. And, you know, we're obviously on socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. And I can be found on LinkedIn as well. You can search my name, and there aren't that many Charles Breques in the world.
Okay, awesome. We'll add your LinkedIn link as well to our show notes. So thank you so much, Charles. I really appreciate you jumping on today. I'm sure everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Akil. It was a lot of fun.
All right, awesome. Cheers. Thank you all for watching this episode and joining SaaS District today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for future episodes where we interview top leaders in the SaaS industry. If you're a SaaS company looking to grow and unlock the true value of your business, get in touch with us at Horizon Capital, and myself or one of our consultants will provide a free assessment to help you get there and hit your goals. If you have any feedback or suggestions for this podcast, please comment down below and help us improve our content for you all. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.